So you're on your TARDIS.
I,
You are alone in time and space. You've recently on this new form, and I mean the TARDIS itself has changed a little bit for you as well. It's not quite as austere and spacious as it once was to you. It's not as clean looking, but boy is it gorgeous. I mean, it's really the aesthetics going on the inside of this TARDIS. The angles and the arches and the way that everything flows together. It really is like a little piece of art.
kitchenette. No, erase this. It regenerated with me.
Yeah.
Your camera is just.
Yeah, no, it's just gonna lag.
You're saying it regenerated with me?
Yes, sir.
Then I claim that it regenerated with a kitchen.
Oh, absolutely.
A fabulous kitchen.
Probably just down one of the corridors.
Yeah, I am currently in that kitchen. The food here we have is abysmal. I kind of like have a white napkin tucked in to protect my nice sky blue shirt, my purple vest, and I'm eating something and I kind of throw it aside, and I pick something else up off the stove and I'm tasting that and I throw it aside. Finally, just kind of like pick up some green beans that I've got in a pan with some butter, and I eat those. I'm not gonna make it a habit of talking to myself, I suppose.
So the camera kind of pans away from you and your beans, kind of shows the empty kitchen, pans across the empty hallways, and there's the slow hum of the TARDIS in the background.
Be lovely? I get out a little sketchbook and start doodling, and I walk out into the main, from the kitchen down the hall to the main space. The bottom space underneath my TARDIS, would it accommodate basically like in-house gardening?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you walk the catwalks that go underneath your main console and you walk amongst the roots of the TARDIS, there's moss growing on the roots. There's
Cool.
You hear chirping and insects. You can't quite see them all the time because they're kind of tucked away and hidden.
So as I walk down there and I'll brush my hands along the TARDIS, I miss the homegrown food, the fields of the vegetables and fruits. I miss the flavors fresh from the pan. I kind of stop with my hand against the TARDIS and lean against it. Do you remember them? The field. Probably no response, and I just kind of like lean back and I walk along and I start like sketching, and I plan out a multi-tiered garden. There are like funguses and then probably some fruits and some vegetables. If I need to do a check for this, I will. I've sketched it all in my sketchbook as I go. Like, and I have different ideas for different planets. Earth mostly is where I'm familiar with its agriculture. And since Gallifrey is gone, and so I'm gonna try to plan some of that from there. Again, kind of talking to the TARDIS. Caps lock doesn't belong. Wouldn't you look nice with a little garden down here? We could feed you, not just me. 18.
The kinds of plans that you have, I mean, it may be difficult to implement on something like the TARDIS, but I mean, in a standard Earth garden, this is master's level gardening. I mean, this is, maybe there's some annotations that you've put down that some people wouldn't quite recognize, and maybe you've even planned for some plants that normally wouldn't be there on Earth, but, this is really solid planning that you have written down here in your notebook. And as you're kind of, pondering through this, you get a little indicating beep from the TARDIS main console, almost as if it's letting you know that it's found something and it's moving to arrive at that destination.
I would fold my notebook up and put it inside. Put it inside my vest, and I'd hurry up the middle console and kind of check it out, see what's going on. I'd go up to my wire transfer setup and my bicycle, and I'd make sure everything's placed and the screen and see if there's anything on there.
Do you take a look outside? Do you try and scan this?
Well, I'd see if the TARDIS, because you know how sometimes the TARDIS is a living being, so if it's trying to communicate with me down the inside, so I'm checking that stuff first. If there is no communication, then I'd open the door.
You know, it seems like the TARDIS landed here because it was feeling low. You were talking about feeding it, and it seems like it had to stop here to kind of re-energize itself. But at the same time, it's almost like it's responding as if it stopped at a fast food restaurant. You know, it's not quite exactly what the TARDIS was hoping for when it landed for a meal. But it's going to hang around and stick here for a second.
Like it really needs a recharge?
It does need a recharge, and this is going to work for it, but it's not, you know, there's kind of coming from the console, and you can tell it's not quite the type of radiation that it was hoping for, but it does let you know you're on the third moon of Montauk in the year 4158.
Have I been near this area before? Do I know anything about these people?
Well, you've passed by this area, but you didn't really choose to stop. This is kind of a tourist trap.
Okay.
You know, lots of people from the galaxy come here, but it's not... portions of it are general populace tourist trap, and then portions of it are designed specifically for the wealthy. And, you know, a lot of this is... kind of how you would imagine, I want to say almost like freak shows that would come to town, where it's like, you know, they're selling you something, but they may not be completely honest about what they're selling. And to a traveler like yourself, many of the things that they're offering to show are things that you could find out in the universe on your own. So it's not really been a big draw for you. But other than that general information, the TARDIS itself kind of, it goes not to sleep, but it's just parked. You know, it doesn't seem eager to go anywhere anytime soon.
I'd grab my Sonic. I'd head out the door.
When you open the door to your shack, creaks open. You're in a large marble hallway. You're kind of tucked up into a corner behind a column. And it's very chilly here. It kind of smells like the inside of a freezer. And as you kind of take a few steps out, it's kind of cavernous and empty, and above you is a domed glass ceiling where you can see out into the other moons of Montauk and Montauk itself and the starships that fly overhead. And as you kind of start walking down the hall, you hear an argument ahead of you. A woman's voice. She's almost sounding berating, you know, kind of yelling, you know. We do not need to bring this up right now. Do not tell any of the guests. We will be acting like normal. Just continue your work. This is not a big deal. And you hear another voice kind of try to cut in. She's like, no, go back to your position. We don't need any trouble right now.
I'd round the corner if I can while they're still talking.
As you're rounding the corner, you see, they both look human. An older woman with a blonde ponytail. And she's got a blouse and a skirt on. They're both black, very professional looking. And the other one is a young girl with black curly hair, and she's wearing what looks to be like a nice server's outfit. And she's looking very dejected. The older woman seems to be the woman who is kind of shouting. And as you're rounding the corner, she's sending the young girl on her way. She doesn't notice you immediately. Even though it's a big, empty hallway, there's lots of shadows being cast. And she seems like she's kind of like straightening herself up. And,
I'd walk like right up behind her as close as I could get without really trying to intentionally be sneaky, but taking advantage of lack of
right.
noticing me.
And as she, kind of straightens and adjusts herself, suddenly
So,
she...
what's,
Oh my goodness,
what's
sir!
not to be mentioned?
Oh, sir, what are you doing here? You should be waiting in the lobby.
No, this seems fine. This is a very nice place.
Sir, I know that, I apologize. It's really nothing of any great importance. We have a new employee here. She's, she thinks that she can solve every issue. Not every issue is that big of a deal. How did you get separated from the group? You should be monitored right now. How did you get out here?
Well, I walked down the hallway until I ended up here.
What?
And here we are. So if you would like to lead on, we could go forward.
Come with me. Let me escort you back to the group, and then we can begin the tour. Okay? What's your name, sir?
Oh, it is the Prof.
The Prof. Excellent. I'm Avra Marie. I will.
Nice to meet you.
And she reaches out her hand, gives you a very firm, cordial handshake.
I return it.
She's like,
how long have you worked here on the
this this is Stapp's Frozen Emporium of Wonders. Have you?
Oh yes, Staff's Frozen Emporium of Wonders. Yes,
right.
No, of course, I've been here before.
Right.
How long have you worked here at Staff's?
Well, and at this point, she is walking you down these long
Oh, yeah, I'm
hallways.
following.
Yeah. You can hear the clack of her heels on the floor, and she's like, "Well, I have worked here for over 40 years. I am the longest running employee here, and it is my job to make sure that everybody is well taken care of. I apologize. I do not seem to recall you being on our list."
Oh, well, I have this special pass, you see.
Well, everything does seem all right here.
I pull out a parchment-wrapped package and begin to kind of unfold it in front of her.
She kind of, like, stares at you, and she's like, well, it's good that we actually had a last-minute cancellation, so we have an extra availability on the tour. I'm glad you were here.
Fresh cucumber sandwich. I offer her a neatly cut triangle of cucumber sandwich. There's a small stack of them.
No, I'm fine, thank you. I've already eaten.
Very good. More for me.
Please.
Well, go ahead. I am very excited for this tour. Staps has been on my list for quite some time.
Well, absolutely. It's one of the finest frozen cryo emporiums this side of the galaxy. If you want to go ahead and join the rest of your tourees, then I will be with you promptly. And you guys enter into a large, round lobby. Just very plain marble floor, a large domed glass ceiling, and there's a little shop off to the side. And there's about 15 to 20 people here. Most of them look very well off. This does not seem to be your general tourist crowd. This seems like people who have booked ahead of time and are very, very excited to see what they're here to see. Lots of murmurs. There is like a family that has a small kid with a 3D digital camera with him, and
so even like in like the Frito-Lay's tour we did way back in the freaking early 90s. Like there's always that, I don't know, propaganda poster excuse me, that they set up for the tourists. It kind of explains what they're about, what their mission is, what they're doing. What is Staps? Like, I'm looking around for that kind of thing. I'm looking around for the schmarmy
large banners hanging from the ceiling that really don't give you much clue as to what's going on. It seems Stapp himself was very proud of his face, and so he's everywhere. I mean, he's all over these banners, striking all sorts of poses. He's a very a handsome-looking human male with a thin mustache, but he's also kind of smarmy looking, very greasy hair.
Excellent.
And he's given a wink in one or two of the posters. Just right off to the side of the shop, there's a little stand that has pamphlets and information there that you can kind of go and pick up. And as you're walking over to it, you hear a man and his wife, and he's like, I can't believe we're finally getting to see this. We have waited 3.5 months for this event. I am so excited. Oh my gosh, can you even believe it, Martha? And she's like, no, I can't believe it at all. But she doesn't even seem remotely interested. She's like, oh my god, how have I been dragged out here? How
I
did
grab
let
one
my
of the
husband do
flyers in
this?"
my right hand, holding my sandwiches in my left hand. I
The
kind of peruse it as I walk towards them, meander towards them.
um the flyers, they explain exactly where you are. There's a little map as well that kind of explains
Ooh,
the
I love
different
that.
portions of um, the area. And essentially, what you're finding is this is an oddities museum. It seems like they have lots of famous aliens, beasts, people, um, things that the general populace would be extremely interested to see. They have them all here in cryo freeze for you to see. Um,
Still alive?
yeah. At the very end of their life, some of them. But they are here. They are flesh and blood here for you to see on display. People from Rockefeller to Amelia Earhart to the Duke of Glyphnam to Dong Hortello. All these people and more are just waiting around
Oh,
the corner for you to witness.
this is my audible reaction. Oh, yeah.
As you're reading
Oh,
this,
this is. I kind of meander up to them.
Avray steps up in front of everybody, and you notice now you aren't, and I'm going to say you notice this also based on your other awareness roll.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you notice it's not just you, the tourists, and Avray. There are two very large Jadoon bodyguards. That
Remind me of which one's Jadoon are.
the large
Oh,
rhinos.
yeah.
Yeah. And they're standing by. They don't look like they're wearing typical Jadoon armor. It looks like they're wearing uniforms for the area, like they work here. Um,
Are they kind of off to the side on their own?
um, Essentially, what it looks like is one of them is standing by Avray, and the other one is in the back of the group,
I kind
almost
of
like
meander to
watching
the
the
back,
group. Um,
instead of meandering towards this family now. I didn't realize there were Jadoon. I would walk up and then I would be saying, since I know I can, Floto Rosso, whatever it is, I would say to him, how did you end up working here, basically?
we go with what pays.
And how long have you been here?
Me and Joe have been here for 5 months now.
Is this long-term work?
Well, that is the idea. It seems like this is a very stable environment. Now, if you wouldn't mind, customer, move along. We will be beginning the tour. And he kind of you can tell he's not used to being polite in any way, because he goes to kind of shove you to the group, and then he kind of stops himself and puts his arms at his side, and he's like, right this way, sir. And you can see,
I'd go.
yeah, the rest of the group's starting to walk off towards what you can only imagine is the first exhibit. And at the front of the tour, Avray is she's doing a little rant about not a rant, but a tour speech. She's
Mm-hmm.
explaining exactly when this was founded. The She's like, Strap's Frozen Emporium of Wonders has been around for 55 years. I have actually been here for 40 years myself and have loved every single minute of it. It's truly fascinating, the wonders that Strap has been able to acquire the galaxy.
I
I
kind of
know,
raise my hand in the back.
uh, and like the gentleman with his wife Mary kind of like looks up like how could you interrupt, and she kind of taken aback because normally these people aren't really the question asking types.
Yeah.
Yes, you in the back.
Yes. How is this legal?
Excuse me.
Well, these people, these beings, these creatures are all very much alive, correct? And according to your pamphlets that I've looked through here, and I kind of hand them to the guy who's standing next to me and walk forward. They're all living exhibits, correct?
Yes, this is actually an exciting part of the exhibit. See, almost everybody who is inside of our exhibit was already lost to history. They had already been taken out of time, and it just so happens that we were able to acquire them. We have not removed them from what they have done previously, and the world already knew them as dead, but we here get to witness them. And everybody kind of gives a soft golf clap, and everybody
This is
seems
okay with you. I turn looking to the people around me.
And the gentleman next to you is like, "Excuse me, sir, we paid extremely good money to see these wonders. If you are not willing to see them, you do not have to be here, but you don't have to ruin the experience for us." His wife kind of looks at you apologetically.
I'm so sorry. Yes, we should continue on. No, you're right. This is perfectly normal.
This way, tourists, as Avre walks you into the first chamber. And I mean, this is an industrial-sized cryo chamber facility. There are several different, and not several, just rows and rows of cryo tanks that are kind of leaned back a little bit and frosted a little bit, but you can tell that they've gone through and kind of buffed off the frost, so you can see the likeness of everybody who's in here. And Avre's pointing them out as you walk past, and there's some that she doesn't point out, but you kind of recognize them. I mean, these are fairly recognizable faces.
Oh, Aubrey.
Yes.
Why do you not let them out to finish living their lives?
Oh, well, this is an excellent point. So here we have Amelia Earhart, a wonderful woman from the history of Earth, one of the first women to fly a rocket plane across the world. Now, she was lost during this flight and was never seen again. Well, this is when we took them. She was not going to impact the rest of history, and therefore would not be missed, only for us to get to witness her.
And where did you find her?
Well, that is a trademarked secret of Strap himself. I would not be able to disclose that to you.
I see, yes, that would be, troubling. And where is Mr. Strap?
Oh, well, Mr. Strap is always in his office, but that is of little
A part
concern.
of the tour later, perhaps?
Oh, no, we will not be disturbing Mr. Strap. We will be continuing the tour, though, and you can see she's starting to get a little peeved with your questions.
Excellent, yes, onward.
And you pass by Amelia Earhart. There's Elvis sitting there. Again, there's a whole section of, Earth history, Rockefeller sitting there. And then you go into, further parts of history and further parts of the universe. And what they said inside of their pamphlets, it seems to be true. I mean, Duke Glyphnum's there. Donegar Tello is here. Porsche Saluna. Who would have thought that Porsche Saluna would reappear to the galaxy? And yet, here it seems that he is.
Luna was buried and sleeping soundly.
That's what everybody else thought, but there's always conspiracy theories about this person being alive and this person being alive. And
yeah.
As everybody's starting to exit the room, go on to the next exhibit, you ask your Judoon friend if you could examine one of these just a little bit, just for a second. He can move you on to the next portion. And he's like, you get 5 seconds. And so you really quickly kind of look down, and you're staring at poor Saluna. And something just doesn't quite look right. It really seems like poor Saluna, but it also doesn't. And as you're walking out, you're glancing and you see, Duke Lifnum, and that looks just like Duke Lifnum, but you are certain that Duke Lifnum had a beauty mark on his right cheek, and that's just not there. And it's a little odd seeming, it just doesn't quite sync up. And then, your Judoon friend, goes ahead and kind of gives you a little push, a little nudge into the next room, and
so at that point, I would keep an eye out quietly, just so you know, so you can maybe point it out. This is an active search of mine for anybody that I would know or would have met, not just like in passing, but that I could say without a shadow of a doubt, or with at least advantage on a roll, basically, that like they are not who they were, if that makes sense. And I'd keep going with them. Also, I'm keeping an eye out for anything that looks like a big office in which Strap works.
As you're brought out of this first exhibit, there's a large plaque up above the doorway to the next exhibit that states, fantastic beasts. And there's a little of an odd turn in your stomach as you step in. And the way that this cryo chamber is set up is slightly different. There aren't individual cryopods, but there are large cubicle cryo chambers, because there's lots of large and small and different beasts and creatures and aliens. And suddenly you get a feeling of, the people who set up this exhibit may not realize that just because it's not humanoid doesn't mean that it's a beast. Because you're seeing things like cat kind in here, and there's an adipose in here, and
probably like the lizard people.
Yeah, and it just there are some crazy beasts in here, but not all of them are beasts, especially like the cat kind. That's just another sentient species. Why are they lumped in here? And they're not given specific names or anything like that. It's just, the general overarching term. And this is the portion of the tour where it seems like everybody's really eating it up. Like, this is crazy. They're
Please
seeing...
remind me of the tour guide's name.
Avray Marie.
Okay. Avray?
Yes, sir.
How did you come about to your, your method of categorization for the Emporium?
Well, I am not in charge of the categorization. That actually was all of the ingenious mind of Strap himself.
Yes.
He really is a true wonder.
Excellent. Yes. Very good. Thank you. Yes.
As you're walking, this floor plan is a little bit more open. The other one, you kind of just serpentined through a straight line of hallways where you couldn't really turn, you couldn't really shift where you are. But this one is a little bit more open. And
I'd take it all in, give it a good spin.
There's a section of this where there's just an entire cryo cube missing, and it's not like it's not like it was removed. There's no drag marks or anything like that. It's just not there. Any of the wiring that would have been hooked up to it looks like it was severed. And there's lots of like caution tape, and everybody's like, I apologize that portion is down for maintenance right now. You know, the cooling chamber failed. You know, we are a 40-year-old
Does it look like that's
facility.
true?
If you were to remove a cryopod, whatever they've done here, this is not how you would do it. There's lines that are just completely severed. There's weird scorch marks on the ground. There's an odd taste in the air. And you can't quite put your finger on it, but it's one of those sixth sense things where it's just like, there's something here just tastes a little... But before you can really put your finger on it, your Jadoon friend is again kind of giving you the scooch. And you know, this tour at this point has been about 45 minutes to an hour long. You've seen lots of different things. In fact, as you're going to leave, you jump a little bit. Because to the right of you, right before you exit this section, there's a frozen Cyberman. But then you realize, you know, these are all frozen. Nothing's really going on here. And so you continue with the tour. And they begin directing you towards the lounge. And Avre makes this very clear, you know, I appreciate everybody, you know, being patient on the tour, understanding that we have, you know, some spots that are down for construction and maintenance. Please, if we would be willing to adjourn back to the lounge, there will be cocktails provided, there are hors d'oeuvres, and we would be more than happy to get you set up for a photo with a specific person or another booking if you would wish. And it's maybe a 5-minute walk to a very comfortable lounge. I mean, we're talking, this almost looks like a high-end lounge that you would see from the 60s on Earth. It's like they have decorated it to be this way, where there's lots of velvet, there's lots of like metallic bubbles on the arms of the chairs, and refined wood, there's brandy, there's olives and little sandwiches, and the woman from earlier, the girl from earlier with the curly black hair, she's actually in here, and she's serving people cocktails, and you know, do you act any specific way as you are kind of escorted to the lounge?
I would follow to the lounge. I would maybe engage with a family or two. Like, I've kind of not been ignoring them. I've been engaging minorly if possible. And just kind of, what do you think about that missing display? What do you think it was? Where do you think it went? How do you think that happened? Not really to stir things up, but just to kind of like get people talking and see if anybody has any good ideas. If
Boy,
anybody does, I'll listen. If it's all silly, then I'll just like kind of ignore them.
yeah, the people in this lounge, the people who came on this tour, they're a jaded group of people. Half of them are sick of hearing you ask questions since nobody else asks questions. The other half don't care. And if you get anybody who says something kind of contrary to that, they're mostly just disappointed that they didn't get their full money's worth. You know,
Yeah,
I don't
pretty
really care that they're doing construction. I paid my 5,000 credits for this, and I expected the full experience, and they
Or are you
didn't
going to
provide
take
that
advantage
for
of the
us.
photo with somebody?
Well, while I'm here, I'm still gonna try and take a photo. I've always wanted to have my photo taken next to Rockefeller. I felt like him and I were,
I'd
you
turn
know,
away from him and I'd walk up towards the curly-haired lady.
um, as you approach, it's like, oh, good evening, sir. Is there a drink that I could provide you, or any food of your choice?
I would pull out another small paper wrap package and I would open up some. Probably this time it would just be little cheese sandwiches, and I'd offer her a cheese sandwich. I'd be like, "No, no, I'm fine," and I'd eat one on my own. But I do have some questions for you.
Oh, well, I don't. I'm a fairly new employee, sir. I don't know how much I'll be able to answer, but
You sounded awfully
absolutely.
distressed earlier today.
Uh, uh, well, It's no big deal, really. It's, I'm sure I was overreacting, as
I've
Avre was
always loved
saying.
the policy: do something, say, or see something, do something, or see something, say something. See something, say something. I think is the one that I like best.
She kind of, like, looks at you. Um, it really doesn't seem like she needed much convincing. It was, like, on the tip of her tongue already, and as you kind of, like, lean in and, raise your eyebrows, she kind of, like, looks around and lowers her voice. She's like, I don't know what Avre was saying to you guys about the construction inside of the beast area, but that happened this morning. One day it was there, and I always go for tours myself before everyone arrives. I love this facility. But when I arrive there, the Minon's it's not there anymore.
We do have a problem.
Well, he was one of my favorite exhibits, just his might, and he's just gone, and maybe there really is nothing to be concerned about. Maybe they had already been working on it, but
Talk to staff.
Well, I'm not really authorized.
Where is his office?
It's beyond the records room, but tourists aren't really.
Would you like to lead me there? If we do not tell him this very quickly and find the resources to find our Minon scout, we will all die before dinner.
I don't know. I don't want to be noticed. And she kind of looks around the crowd. I don't know why, but you've taken me more seriously than anybody else here, so I'm gonna...
Well, yeah, you see things.
Well, then let me go ahead and lead you to the records room.
And you say things. Let's go!
Yeah, and I'm sorry, sir. What's your name?
The Prof. Lead on.
My name's Maggie.
Hi, Maggie.
And Maggie takes you, you guys kind of slip out of the lounge as people are starting to kind of laugh, and individuals are starting to be taken for photos by the Jadoon. And she leads you down the long hallways, you're passing...
I offer her a sandwich once we're out of the room.
And she tentatively just, like, agrees and kind of nibbles on it as you walk, and you can tell she's very nervous.
Hold it all up.
So she takes you down the hallways and, away from the other side of the facility that you were on. And you come to a large metallic door, and as you arrive, she kind of stops. She's like, oh my goodness, sir, I don't have keys. I can't get us in here.
Maggie,
I don't know
why don't
what
you
I was
watch
doing.
the hallway for me?
Okay, if we're caught, though, I really will lose my job.
It will be my fault.
She's like, yes, it will. And she kind of, like, huddles up to start watching the hallway. She's like, I don't know how you think you're going to get in there.
Use the Sonic to get it unlocked?
Yeah. And it's unlocked. Almost. She's still in the middle of, I just don't know how you're going to get that.
And we're in. Let's go.
Oh. Okay. And, you both kind of step inside and you close the door behind you. This room is dusty. I mean, it seems like nobody's been in here for years. You can do some kind of roll to figure out how many years, but there is a solid layer of dust on everything.
Take that at its face, I think. Is okay?
Yeah. And there's computers kind of lining the back wall. This seems, again, like, I don't know if Mr. Stapp himself had some sort of obsession with it, but this, again, seems kind of like a 60s office. There's even a Earth globe sitting on top of somebody's desk, and there's some old filing cabinets, but, if you open up the filing cabinets and go through them, there's not much there, but there is a high-tech computer against the back wall. And Maggie approaches
Nothing else really going on in the area?
There's some desks, there's some pencils, but literally, it just doesn't look like anybody's been in here. And
Straight to that computer, then.
Yeah, and you press some buttons to turn it on, and Maggie's like, this must be the records center. And she points to a door that's at the other end of the office, and it has, Stapp's office written on it. And she kind of walks over there as you're looking at the computer, and she goes to turn the knob. And she's like, "This is locked, but it doesn't even seem to have a lock on it. I wonder if it's locked electronically somehow." Do you want to go flitting through the records? Do you want to see what you can find as you're in here?
Yeah, I think so, since I'm already over there.
Yeah. So it's a little confusing. I mean, as you open up the database, you just get row after row of bio ID and what look like space-time coordinates. And I mean, there are thousands of rows of data. And it takes you a second, and I mean probably just like half a second, for you to realize that each line is for an individual because it is attached to a bio ID. And so it seems like this is a cataloging of what they have on display, but that doesn't quite match because there's thousands more entries here than what they actually have on display. But there's not a lot of explanation or information or notes or anything other than simply these data points that are in here. And, as
Are the data points all for this locality?
the points in time and space seem to not correlate with this time and space. They seem to be all separate. And as you're looking, you realize that you are able to kind of sort the data. So at one point, you're able to find Amelia Earhart.
That's what I was just gonna ask. That's who I was gonna look for. Okay, cool.
But there's 500 entries under her name, and they're all from different points in time and space. Some of them are very similar with the space, but especially the time. It's just all over the place, and that doesn't make sense because they've got one Amelia Earhart here. And while you're not able to really discern much more from the data, you do realize that there is a emergency access to the office, to Stapp's office.
That puppy.
Yeah, you press the button, and it kind of creaks open.
I would beeline that direction.
Cool, I realize.
I'd be the first through. I'd kind of hold my finger to my lips as I push through.
As you open the door, kind of a musty smell of decay hits your nose. And what smells like, dust and old books and glue. And there is a very large, very complex computer behind the main desk that is in this office. It's a very small office with one or two sitting chairs, a large mahogany desk with a very high top, almost Victorian chair facing towards the computer. And the computer is on, and it's humming, and it seems to be actively calculating stuff.
Mr. Stapp?
There's no response.
Can I kind of scan this thing with my sonic and awareness to locate what it is? Hang on. Or not locate what it is, but help myself identify what it is.
The scan trait means that the gadget can investigate something at a range of a meter and see what's going on inside it, whether it's a medical function, checking inside someone to see what's wrong or what species they are, or a technical function, looking at the wiring and circuitry of a device. It all works on the same basic principle in most cases. The user has to make an awareness roll combined with a suitable skill, medicine for medical or biological scans, technology if you're doing it on computers, and it provides a +2 bonus roll to scan it.
Cool. So I think probably awareness technology probably on this one.
If you're looking at the computer.
Yeah. +2 from the Sonic. I would walk up and I would kind of scan it, look it over, I'd sniff it. I would listen to it, kind of press my ear against it. I'd feel for where it's warm, like where its fans are, maybe. Look at its wiring, and I'd roll a 19 on that.
That taste is in the air again. Kind of that. It's almost metallic-y, aluminum-y, decay. It's a very odd taste. But as you scan this computer, you realize this is a large, old, automated system. And there is some sort of AI inside of it that is actively processing and running calculations. But beyond that, there is an abnormal power source to this thing. And you can't quite tell what it is just based off of your scan, but you're getting weird fluctuating power readings from this thing.
That it's off-putting or that it's feeding from?
That it is feeding from. And a little bit of that comes in the way that the power fluctuates inside of the machine itself. But it seems to be designed to handle that. It doesn't seem like it's putting the machine under much stress. But it's got a very powerful power source.
Oh no. Well, this is why it landed here. That makes sense.
Maggie kind of steps forward and she's like, Mr. Stapp? Mr. And she like touches his chair and it rotates like an office chair. And there's just a skeleton in clothes sitting there. Mr. Stapp is obviously passed years ago. I mean, maybe even 40 years ago. There's not even skin left on his body.
So I'm gonna basically pretend like that's not a big deal, and I'm not surprised by that.
Oh my god!
Yes, that does happen. When you create something. What is this? Can I follow? Like, is it hardlined to its power source? Is it feeding off of it wirelessly?
As you start kind of interacting with the system, you walk up to it, you start kind of assessing what's going on. Text appears on the large screen. Hello, visitor.
Is there an input method?
There's a keyboard in front of it.
I just punch in, hello. I am the Prof.
It types back, I am the curator. How may I assist you today?
Ooh. The curators. So did Mr. Stapp make you?
Mr. Stapp did, in fact, make me. I was his life's work.
And you now manage his collection.
I have always managed his collection. This is my sole duty.
And how are you powered?
I am powered by what is. I am powered by the gap. I am powered by my duty. And you kind of almost get the sense that maybe this thing doesn't quite understand what it's powered on.
What are you, a paradox engine? Are you... I just don't understand. It's right in front of me. And kind of pace around.
You notice that Maggie seems kind of uncomfortable and confused, and she's kind of rubbing a spot on her wrist, and she's like, I don't like this. Something doesn't feel right.
Something happened earlier. They disappeared. Something doesn't feel right. What doesn't feel right?
Just like, I feel like I know what. And she just generally looks confused, and the system types to you, and it goes, there are no paradoxes here.
Where did the Minon go? Typed into the computer.
and it goes, scanning for biodata information. And, there's like a 4 or 5 second pause, and it goes, biodata code, it strings off this long series of numbers. Not found within facility. Slipped out.
I would type in, are you familiar with Minon advanced techniques, advanced maneuvers, I guess? Scouting techniques, I think is maybe what I would say.
Yeah, it types back. When double-checking the record data, the Minon was completely cryo-frozen when it slipped out. We do not believe that this is of Minon design. Merely a malfunction in my processing. Do you need to see the archives? ?
Yeah.
States, please type in password. And you're kind of like, password? What? How am I gonna get the password? And as you're pondering, you're staring at the screen. Maggie goes, "Oh, what is this in Mr. Stapp's hands?" And you see Mr. Stapp is holding an envelope in his bony hand. And she kind of picks it up, and you take it from her, and inside is just a string of letters and numbers. It looks just like a password.
Punch it in.
Access granted. And this is like an actual voice that chimes up. It's like, and there's a bookshelf on the wall to your right that slides to the side, revealing a secret passage. And you see Maggie kind of clam up a little bit more, and you can tell that she's getting more and more uncomfortable by what is happening. And, she's not certain what's going on.
I would do 2 things. The coordinates on the computer that it gave me, for the Minon.
Mm-hmm.
Can I use like a story point to say that I know where those lead, where it slipped to?
Yeah.
Or is it 2 story points, or?
Well, here's what I'll say, is that the curator itself has no clue where the Minon went. But
so its location data is...
Its location data is unknown right now, but it does know where it originally came from, if you want to spend a story point knowing that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
This thing came from one of the most recent home planets of the Minon. I mean, it seems like it was taken from time and space on Minon itself. Or not Minon itself, but like Aragoth, their most recent home planet. It seems like it was taken from the Minon people. And I'll even say, with this story point, when you're looking up the first record of Amelia Earhart, well, the very first time, it seems like they got Amelia Earhart from her Atlantic trip. I mean, you're familiar with the coordinates of that time and that space, and that's where it is. But all the other ones they're scattered. I mean, some of them are on Earth, some of them aren't. Most of them are not from that time period. They're from other time periods.
Okay, we're gonna go through that secret passage.
As you walk into the hallway, there's another plaque above you that says deep freezer storage. And Maggie kind of shudders.
I thought there'd be more.
Maggie's like, I didn't know that this was here, but it seems kind of familiar.
According to the number of records upstairs, there are many, many, many more.
And as you guys walk down some stairs, and it just gets colder and colder. Um, you arrive in a giant warehouse space. I mean, it must be 5 stories tall. It is the size of an airport hangar, essentially. And you're looking out over this warehouse, and there are at least 10,000 different cryopods here. And you're not seeing the large cryopods that you saw in the beasts. These all seem to be person-sized cryopods. As you start walking down the rows of the cryopods, you get to Amelia Earhart. And she's here. But she was upstairs. And there's 100 of Amelia Earhart behind this first one. And it's, you're pondering back through the theory of, like, is this a paradox? Is this thing somehow holding 100+ versions of Amelia Earhart and all these other, versions in this one reality? That can't be it. Like, that amount of power would rip the fabric of time and space. And as you're pondering this, you hear and you turn, and Maggie's kind of collapsed on the ground, and she's kind of pushing herself away from a cryopod.
And she's in it, right?
Yeah, you run up, and there's a row of Maggie. She's like, what's going on here? What is happening right now?
Could be clones.
And do you want to go ahead and scan Maggie real quick?
Yeah.
You're able to kind of like run your sonic screwdriver over the cryopod and over Maggie real fast, and the Maggie that is in the cryopod and the Maggie that is here before you, they have the same DNA. They have the same cells. And you notice Maggie has a tattoo on her forearm. That's a series of numbers. And you are able to double check on the one inside of the cryopod that you can see easily. And it also has a long series of numbers, with the very last one digit higher. And Maggie's kind of clutching her head. She's like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand. And for you as a player, essentially, she's a clone. And she's not realized she's a clone. And she's probably found out that she's a clone multiple times. And she got replaced. And this is not the first Maggie who has served drinks or figured out that there's something odd going on. But this is the Maggie that you have here in front of you.
Maggie, you are probably a clone, and not the first. But you are the one that is here and talking to me now. And what we need to figure out together, Maggie, what we need to know...
And she's like hyperventilating and sobbing.
And what you can help me solve, and what only you can help me solve, is why they're doing this.
It's like, well, I don't...
How does it create energy, Maggie?
I don't know. I can only assume that... But why would I... Why me? How could I help you anymore? If I'm just a clone, if I'm just... I'm not real. I couldn't come up with these ideas.
I kind of pinch her pretty firmly on the upper arm.
Ah!
Did you feel that?
Yes.
Are you here now?
Yes.
Do you see these rows of caskets?
Yes.
And you're aware of your hands, your breath, your thoughts?
Yes.
Excellent. You're here now. Now we need to move on, and we need to figure out how they are using these clones to power that machine.
And I would, as the GM at this point, suggest maybe go back to the curator and see, now that you have a little bit more information, if you couldn't drag something out of the curator.
We would do that then.
As you exit the warehouse facility, you're stepping back up. It's kind of falling into place with you, but it's not quite making sense. I mean, there's a bunch of other Amelia Earharts and there's a bunch of Maggies, but Maggie is a clone. But Amelia Earhart didn't have serial numbers on her forearm. And Maggie doesn't have biodata that tracks in the system. What is going on here? Are there two parts to this problem? And as you walk back up to the curator, it's immediately typing to you. Hello, Prof. Is there anything that I can do for you?
Clones.
We have 2 clones active within the facility.
How are there duplicates of one creature?
These are individuals. And you're like, this doesn't make much sense. Like,
of different time points?
These individuals were selected based upon their biodata that closely matched what we originally had in the facility. These are replacement items for our curation.
Were they born as Amelia? Was each of the people lined up as Amelia Earhart born as an Amelia Earhart?
It brings up Amelia Earhart's file, and it starts running you through the data. It shows Amelia Earhart's photo. It shows the time and location that she was plucked from time and space, and then it immediately moves to the next biomarker. And there's a photo of a woman who looks extremely similar to Amelia Earhart. Alice Morris denotes the time and space that she was plucked from, 4020 New Earth. And it just keeps going down this list of other individuals who were their own people who just happen to look like Amelia Earhart. Have been
I'd
plucked.
kind of pound my fists on the machine a little bit. Only partial answers every time. Where does your power source come from?
Would you like to see?
Please.
And right after this, you hear like a hiss. As the screen, this large screen that's been displaying all this information in front of you, kind of moves forward a little bit and then slowly slides up. And behind it, there's a metal wall. And in the middle of this metal wall, it looks like there is just a tear. Like some large one-fingered claw tore through the metal, peeling it back. And there's some dark and some black and white, like almost light that's kind of glowing behind this tear. And you can see, it looks like wires that have been taped and fused to parts of this tear. And it looks like there's some that are reaching inside of the tear. And you want to do a knowledge check for me?
Mm-hmm. Ingenuity?
Yeah.
Woo! 20?
While you don't know its origins, this is a rip in time and space. It's not a crack. It's not a splinter. Somebody has torn a hole into time and space. And you've got to give Stapp some credit. It takes some intense ingenuity to figure out how to set up a program that can use this crack in time and space to sort for people and pluck them out of it. It seems like when it was saying that its power source is its designated, operation, it was kind of being literal. The way that it curates is through its power source. It is using this bleed in time and space to search for people who match the biodata of the individuals that they've had in these cryo chambers, and
uses that same energy to displace them.
And uses that same energy to run itself and the whole facility. And something that's...
Well, this has got to stop.
And something that strikes you, this is a two-way hole. It's not just a hole that something can get yanked out of. It's maybe a hole that things could get pushed back through, or slip back through.
So how... I don't know what to do with the thought. I'd close the panel and I'd type back in. So if the Minon slipped back through the hole, no, I wouldn't close the panel.
I was saying, it can keep
close
communicating with you. Yeah, you just need to close the hole.
I just need to close the hole. Where's your power switch? How do we do this? How do I turn you off?
I cannot turn off my power source. It runs as it will. And then Maggie kind of chimes up. She's like, "But if you close the power source, what happens to all the people in cryo sleep? Where will they go? Are they just lost forever?"
Why can they not live here? Both as a player and as the professional. Is there a problem with this place, that I would know about?
No, you would not. But you would recognize that while Amelia Earhart and Rockefeller, they went missing during their actual lifetimes, it's hard for you to believe that every single one of these people naturally went missing during their lifetimes.
All right, so let's reverse the freaking programming. And it's going to use all the energy that it's got to put all the people back.
Do a science roll for me to start
back.
You realize that this is possible, and you start trying to wire stuff and set up the flux capacitors and stuff like that, so that you can start funneling these people back using the data from the records. You're able to find the exact places in time and space where they were, and maybe, just maybe.
Oh, but I'm using my spanner on this. I'm using my my thing.
Give you a +2.
Obviously, that's silly geese don't use sonics. So we'll just go ahead. There we go. +7 instead, and that's gonna give me a 15. I'll take that 15.
Nice. So you start churning on this. You're asking, Maggie, help me with these buttons. Grab some wiring and pull it. And you guys start working on this project, and it all seems to be going great. It all seems to be going perfectly. And you go to fire it up, and it kind of sputters and sparks, and the curator kind of responds to it and says, I do not have enough power to keep my systems running and transmit these people at the same time. We need more power. Boy, it's almost like you have a vehicle that might be able to help you with this.
I think I used my last 3 story. Oh no, I still have 4 more. I used 3 story points to be able to route the TARDIS straight through this thing and just shortcut it. Because we've already done the legwork.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just gonna power it and make it work.
So you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I need something more, and I'm already starting to drain the energy of this machine. It's starting to fail, and right then the TARDIS.
I just start like braiding coaxial cords, which is a weird way to transmit power, but it's gonna work from the TARDIS.
Why is there a shed in the middle of this office? What is going on? And you throw open the door and start running wires into the TARDIS, and
Maggie, don't worry about it right now. Just help me out.
she steps in and she's like, oh my god, it's massive on the
Yes, on the inside. Now here, take this cable and run it back to the machine. You'll know where to plug it in. I showed you earlier.
right, and she runs over to start helping you plug it all in, and
I like press a couple of little multicolored buttons on the console, plug a slinky into the console, hit the third gear on the bicycle shift, and throw a lever, and the power is transferred.
The power is transferred, and the curator begins to spark, and you see some flames coming up on the console, and everything starts kind of shaking and rocking, and you can feel. I mean, camera cuts to the very rich gentleman and his wife getting a photo with Rockefeller. And they've opened up the cryopod specifically so they can be there, even though he's still kind of frosty. And they're, say cheese, and right as they say that, he's gone. He's no longer there. There's just smoke, and they're like, oh my god! And individually, each of these people in the cryopods just starts evaporating from time and space. It looks like they're getting sucked into the cryopod, but you know that they're being taken through this portal, and it really only is working this way because you've got this large infrastructure that's already tagged all of them and placed them, and it knows where they are, and it's able to just pull them right from where they are. All the beasts start disappearing back to where they were, and you're able to run down to the warehouse, and you see thousands of these people start popping back to the times and places where they belong, and it's truly glorious, and you get this feeling of who knows how many families you have reunited, and who knows how many lives are going to get to continue instead of just being stuck in this cryo space. And the one thing that you realize as it's all happening is what's going to happen to the curator? What's going to happen to Maggie and the other clone that may be running around here? What's going to happen to all of them, And as you run back up to see the curator, you see a lot of the wiring is kind of fraying, and there's just so much energy pouring in and out of the gap that you see it's starting to kind of, any of the bent metal that's pulled away from it is starting to kind of pull itself back towards the tear, almost as if it's starting to heal itself, and as it's doing this, wires are kind of get popping off and exploding, and you see text appear on the curator, and it says, thank you, Prof, for finalizing my mission.
Oh, it has been my pleasure. I promise.
And the whole thing just kind of starts shuddering, and the computer itself starts collapsing and gets sucked through the tear. And the tear's still there. There's silence inside of the office, and the tear's still there, but it doesn't have the glow anymore. It looks simply like a tear in metal at this point. Do you want to do a little investigation on the tear itself?
Yeah, I was gonna say, before anything else, I kind of want to figure out what's going on with all that.
Yeah.
I'd poke around with my fingertips first, probably, at this point, because, I mean, if my hand goes through, then...
Well, it
That's
seems
good to know.
at this point like there's just brick behind the tear, but it's still very, the actual metal is still very hot to the touch, and there's still, an extremely metallic taste in the air. There is the smell of char and stuff from the wires that were burning. But this crack, this tear, looks, it looks like it was intentional. But you can tell that its origin point is not here. This is just one of the places where this tear has represented itself. And in mentally re-reviewing the data that you were looking at, there's 2 or 3 very specific points where this tear seems to be extremely active. And it's possible that, while you may not be able to use this tear to investigate what's going on, it is possible that you could trace the energy from this tear to another point in time and space where it is. And you may be able to do some further investigations. It's very unlikely that other people will have, entire automated systems designed around this tear. Usually when stuff like this happens, it just kind of sits idly in the background and nobody notices it. Things will fall out of the tear, slip into the tear sometimes. And so it's similar in certain ways to other fractures in time and space that you've seen. But the fact that it looks intentionally created is abnormal. It would take immense power to do this.
Can I figure out like which times or places it's specifically associated with?
Yeah. There are 2 extremely strong ones, and one that's actually it seems like it has been much more constant and active at one of these spots, which is, oh shit, it'd be in West Virginia, and it looks like it's going active. I mean, you're studying this kind of stuff on the TARDIS as well, using it to kind of assess what's going on. And it looks like the TARDIS is directing you towards West Virginia 2020.
Okay.
So at this point, your challenge is over. You realize, once the tear's kind of stopped itself, the TARDIS stops getting that kind of like indigestion feel, and its batteries are fully charged. It definitely was here for this tear. This is where it was going to recharge itself. But you think something about the intentional creation of this tear may have had something to do with the uneasy feeling the TARDIS was getting when it first landed.
Oh yeah, this feels sick.
And at this point, it's kind of encouraged.
Real strong ones.
Yes.
West Virginia 2020, and
the other one is on a planet that you've heard of, but you're not crazy familiar with. It's called Toonterra. But it only seems to go active like once every 100 years. It's very dormant in comparison.
Time frame for that one?
Oh shoot. We are looking
probably like 6000 AD Earth time.
We're actually looking at 4560. So it's in a similar time frame to where you're at now.
Okay. Cool.
I
would kind of, I guess true to the original show, probably I'd wrap up the end of it pretty quickly, say goodbye to Maggie, and then I'd head straight to the TARDIS and go out into space.
Maggie and her plethora of clones are very grateful to you. Avre Marie did not realize it, but she was also a clone, and she had a few clones in back storage, but she had never needed to be replaced because she never questioned what she was doing. and they're able to kind of go out and start living their lives. I mean, there was a fortune in antique items here within the museum itself, and
In the Emporium, were there any farmable vegetables or fruits that I could take with me to my TARDIS?
the only things inside of the emporium were beings, no vegetation.
I would try to take something from this planet as a memento, a plant of some sort that will get planted in my new garden. That's a thing.
As you're kind of, clearing everything up, saying your goodbyes to everybody, Maggie's thanking you so much. She, we would never would have realized what exactly was going on here. Who knows how long this could have continued to happen? Who knows how many clones of mine would have been replaced if you hadn't arrived?
Probably dozens. You are very
Yes.
inquisitive. You would not have let it go.
Thank you so much for
Maybe
being here,
hundreds.
sir. She seems a little disconcerted about that, and kind of
Do not let go of that inquisitive nature. It will do you well, but probably hundreds, maybe thousands.
but maybe we'll see you again. Maybe you can come back and visit us.
There is a very certain chance that that will never happen, but it is a
Oh.
good thought.
Okay. And the last thing that you notice as you're going to leave is, and you didn't notice it prior, probably because there wasn't caution tape around it. It wasn't a big deal that anybody was making. But there is a cryopod missing, a human cryopod missing.
Human one?
Yeah, well, one of the ones that would contain a human.
Do we know who?
When you ask Maggie, she just kind of shakes her head and she said that that one was empty. It was there waiting for another person, but we never added anybody else to our collection. So we went to have it removed, and one day it was simply gone.
Okay. Is there a way to confirm this?
Scan the spot where it was.
Also, last story point, to make sure that the Minon aren't coming back here to take this as their planet, because that'd be crappy.
You realize that while this tear is extremely important to get fixed, it has obviously continued to be here for 40 years and hasn't majorly harmed anybody. So while this is an important thing to solve and figure out, the more pressing issue is, where did this Minon go? More than likely, it probably arrived in one of the more active points where this tear is.
So that location is at bigger danger than...
Very likely, yeah.
I rolled a 19 using a technological scan from my sonic screwdriver. So I set it to setting number 24, and I went around and I looked for ion traces and, the like.
It's very faint. This pod has been missing for a while, but you can still pick up very, very faint traces of temporal energy here, and it does seem like this pod may have also disappeared to West Virginia, but not in the year 2020. Maybe 100, 200 years prior to that?
I'm going to do my best to hone in on its coordinates, set that in my sonic, and input that into the TARDIS when I return.